what they pretend. Who knows how this ends? I'm young and you're free, so why don't you spend time with me? Conversations with art.
For people who know me, know that I'm in the third semester of law school. And this means that I've had 3 rounds of full-fledged exam seasons. And every time we have an exam season, I realize just how ridiculous all of our testing is. And every exam season, I get saddened by the fact that thousands and thousands of kids get assessed in this manner. So this podcast episode, I want to talk about something that truly frustrates me and something that truly fills me with rage, which is how testing happens in law schools. When I started this podcast, which is, 6 months ago, I wanted to talk about things that interest me and things that I think I want to talk about. And this definitely is one of the subjects because I'm extremely passionate about kids not burning themselves out. And I'm extremely passionate about students not constantly feeling like they aren't doing enough when they're literally juggling 6 extremely heavy subjects side to side. So where do we begin? I think law school in and of itself is really, really tough. I think it is a really expansive and a really vast area to delve into. It's a hard profession. So inherently, I think law school is tough. But I think there are certain things that colleges and universities can sort of incorporate in order to make it a little easier for their students, right? Just to make sure that kids don't miss out on just the fun aspect of going to school, fun aspect of being in college. So what I'm going to try and do in this episode is point out all the flaws that I see in the system and point out all the ways I think assessment is currently fucked and look at alternatives that I think could help better the system and alternatives that are, both viable and feasible. But before all of this, let's take a quick look at what finals week looks like for us. So our semester spans 4 months, out of which the last 2 weeks are just exams back to back. The last 2 weeks look like people not sleeping nearly enough, people not eating nearly enough, and people just cramming as much information as they can so they can go and just vomit it in the paper. And 4 months for a semester seems fine until you take a look at the sort of subjects we have. We have really vast and expansive subjects that deserve a lot more time than they are actually given. In which case, I feel like the least professors can do is help students cope with it. But what happens in our college is really interesting because it's like all the professors listen to what the batch wants and then run the exact opposite way. Let me give you an example. So we have 2 components of assessment. The first is internal evaluation, which is what we call the CETs. The CETs are the exams that happen during the semester. It's the evaluation that keeps happening simultaneously as your classes are going on. And it could be anything. It could be an MCQ test, it could be Viva, it could be a group discussion, it could be a research paper submission. It could be absolutely anything, and it is upon the professor's discretion as to how evaluation is going to be conducted. But I'm of the opinion that since we have full-fledged finals, which are subjective papers, anyway at the end of the semester, that it makes more sense to have different ways of assessment during the semester. Like what one of our professors did this semester was do a 30-mark subjective test first, then do a 20-mark subjective test, all in CET, and then also have us write an end semester paper with overlapping syllabus. And I'm just like, what purpose does this serve? And I really start to question the intention of the professor when things like this happen. Because genuinely, why are we doing this? Like, how does this make sense? So, say if you have 10 big and important modules, if you've already comprehensively assessed kids on 3 of those modules and you have 7 remaining modules, then maybe divert attention to the remainder of the 7 modules during end semester. Because otherwise, what's the point of like just grouping those earlier modules with the end semester modules? What purpose is this serving? I just think it means more stress and more cramming for the students. The only argument that I can think of in favor of assessing kids on every single module taught in the semester is that, oh, repeated testing will solidify information in the student's brain. And whilst I want to believe this, I think what actually ends up happening is a lot more complicated. So the way testing happens across a lot of law schools in India right now is that there's a lot of emphasis on mugging up details. There's a lot of emphasis on mugging up the section numbers, mugging up the names of the cases, mugging up the clauses, etc. And then just being able to vomit all of that information when you go to write the actual paper. Let me give you a real life example. We had IPC this semester, and our professor legitimately expected us to learn 500 different sections, all by heart, and then mug up 2 relevant case laws for each and every single section. This means that for one single statute, you're supposed to learn 500 different sections and 1,000 case laws. Mind you, you have more than hundreds of statutes available. I think such a focus on rote learning is honestly just useless to a very large extent, and on top of that, it's just extremely annoying. I have a very simple reason for believing why the emphasis on details like section numbers and like case names is useless. I think inevitably students are going to forget details like case numbers or section names. And the reason for this is that if such information is not attached to the real life implication of law, or if it's not attached to a deeper understanding of the law, then this information is just completely useless. And obviously, it goes without saying that if you're becoming a lawyer, there is certain information that will come handy to you if you're practicing law. But I think there's just better ways of, retaining such knowledge. Like a very simple suggestion would be, don't have kids learn entire statutes. If you're, say, learning the Indian Penal Code when you're studying law of crimes, to me, it makes sense to, know the important sections and know some of the landmark judgments that have helped us understand the law better, or some of the landmark judgments that have changed the law. But to me, it is just ridiculous to know what Section 54 stands for, especially if it's a largely irrelevant section. Like, such mugging up just means that you're diverting less time and energy to the much more important things that exist in the subject. Like, maybe divert more time and energy into doing better case studies, maybe divert more energy into actually attending a case proceeding to see the way lawyers use these sections to enhance their arguments, or to just like understand the law better. And I think whilst learning or having to learn 500 sections is a problem in and of itself, because students just have to cram as much more. Students just have to divert a lot more of their energy into learning inane details. The bigger problem is that the expectation from students shifts from understanding the law or being able to apply the law to something that is a lot more useless. Like, by the end of the semester, I think it wasn't expected of us to like understand the intricacies of law or talk about landmark judgments that help fill a lacuna in the statute. But instead, like things like being able to write down the name of a case in the paper that we don't even know the factual metrics of. Like, there have been so many times where we've just gone and written down the name of a case, and in one line, like we know that a person has been indicted of a certain crime, and that's literally the extent till which you know about that particular case. And it honestly defeats the purpose. It defeats the purpose of being in law school. And I think the alternative that comes to my mind isn't too far-fetched. So like I said, for starters, don't expect kids to learn entire statutes. Like, don't have them learn all of the irrelevant information that's probably not going to be useful. Secondly, coming to the important information that you might want your kids to remember, I think it's important to recognize that there are actually multiple mechanisms through which we can incentivize kids to retain all of that information. So, speaking from personal experience, I think I learn the most in law school when I'm doing moot court. Now, moot court is essentially a mock court where, you know, you have an entire legal problem and you're assigned a side and you like prepare an entire case. Like, you prepare your own arguments, you look at past case laws for that, you look at like relevant sections, and then you submit a memo and actually have a, like, basically play pretend lawyer. I think this is such a beautiful way of incentivizing kids to dig in deeper themselves, to understand the intricacies of law, to remember stuff that's important, because you go through the same cases again and again to make sure that you're not missing anything. You make sure you read the sections over and over again. And I think in this process, you just naturally end up remembering a lot of the important stuff. Which is another reason why when you actually become an advocate or when you actually become a lawyer and you're, say, doing litigation, you just naturally come across certain sections over and over again, and that's how you like remember them. I think the way it's happening in law school right now is like very unnatural. It's like forcing kids to just learn everything without them really understanding anything. My second biggest problem with law schools across India is that it's almost like professors don't understand that there are other skill sets that need to be honed for a person to become a good lawyer. Like, it's not just a reading of a statute that will make me a good lawyer, because then what's the difference between me, a person who's doing a 5-year law degree, and another person who's not, if all it takes to be a lawyer is like reading a statute? I think there are a lot of other important skill sets like your reasoning skills, your analytical skills, your application of the law. And these are skill sets that need to be honed, but are almost given like little to no importance in law school. And I think there's a very simple way of overcoming that, which is when you're testing kids, have kids apply that part of their brain. Have kids be more creative. Like, give them problems that mirror real life problems where they can actually apply their minds, like, or like places where they can actually use reasoning or analytical skills. And I see an attempt of that, like a little bit in our contracts paper, but nearly not enough. I think there's a long, long way to go. There's another issue that I want to shine light on. I'm not quite sure how to go about it. Like, I don't know what the alternatives are, but I think we should still discuss it. So, to me, it makes sense if you want me to write a subjective paper on like a subject like macroeconomics. But to me, it's useless for me to write a subjective paper on more philosophical subjects or, like, say, more abstract subjects. So I don't see the point of having to write a subjective paper for things like jurisprudence or for things like legislative drafting. I think the alternative is maybe, I don't know, writing an academic paper, a research paper. And I think, like, I already know the sort of arguments that people have against this, which is that, oh, like, kids use a lot of ChatGPT when writing academic papers, or like kids plagiarize the shit out of like other articles or whatever when they're writing academic papers. And whilst that's true, because I have seen it firsthand, I might even have done it, I think the problem is that we aren't really taught how to write a good research paper. Like, we aren't really taught how to do research in the first place. I think colleges, especially in undergrad, need to teach kids as to how to go about research. Like, I think academic writing should be given the integrity it deserves. And I don't think that's what's happening right now. I think you need to, like, have a conducive environment. Like, I think things like your professor actually helping you out for things like this, your professor hand holding you a little bit because you're doing an undergrad right now. I think things like this need to happen for a more fruitful environment to do academic writing. I also very quickly want to touch upon the idea of flexibility in law school, because I think it could really help students a lot. So the way law school is structured for us is that there's a predetermined schedule for each and every student. And like, there are subjects that you're mandated to take every semester. I think it would help kids a lot more if they could pick and decide the subject they want to take each semester. I think that could help them decide how intense they want the semester to be. If they have, like, say, pre-commitments, or if they're just, I don't know, maybe not doing well mentally, and if they just want an easier semester, I think that is the option that people should be able to opt for. I understand that this is not entirely in the control of the admin, because a lot of the requirements are predetermined by the BCI, which is the Bar Council of India. But I feel like if the Bar Council could maybe in some ways introduce more flexibility, it could genuinely help a lot of people. Like, maybe I want to do my first semester, like, I want to have a hectic first semester and just want to cool off a little bit on the second semester. I think that could do wonders for a lot of people. I think people would have more control over their lives, and they would know exactly what they're signing up for. And I think not like the same schedule does not work for everyone. I think there are people who are capable of perhaps finishing a 5-year course in 3.5 years, and there are people who don't want to take it, like who want to take it easy on themselves and want to complete a 5-year course in maybe 5.5 years. And I think that should be fine. To me, it just makes sense to have or give people the option to be able to like pick and decide what they want. And yeah, that's it. That's all I want to talk about, at least for now. I'm sure there are multiple other things that are going to piss me off in the upcoming semesters. But for now, this is it. I'm fully aware that this was a rant, so thank you so much for listening. I would love to engage in like fruitful discussions as to how we could better the education system. But anyway, to anybody who is not studying law but still took time to listen to this episode, I'm really thankful. Thanks for tuning in. Bye bye.